I am the Lowborn Kinsman. I am the warlock machine. I am the son of the storm. I am the result of successive dark ruttings, some mundane while others were quite unnatural. My story begins, as all horrific wretched tales do, with my father. He was a West Virginian, a powerful warlock, and a moonshiner who distilled his white lightning so he alone could partake of it. His name was James Earl Dethridge, given to him at his birth in 1949, and he carried that cursed name until his passing in 1990. His father before him was Earl Ray Dethridge, an Appalachian native of the Wolf clan, who is descended from one of only 11 people spared execution when the great Shawnee warrior and medicine man Bamino took Fort Siebert in 1758. Why Bamino would deign to spare anyone of the Dethridge family stock is beyond reckoning. Though, to the white man, Bamino was known as John Kilbuck, and there is a vile rumor that there was consanguinity betwixt the Kilbuck and Dethridge clans. I say this rumor is vile, because it besmirches the honor of Bamino's holy and sacred bloodline. My grandsire, Earl Ray Dethridge, wooed and wed a Pendleton County princess. She took the form of one Lucinda Beth Pendleton, 20 years younger than he, and born with a veil over her head. She was known from her youth to be a witch, and the hill folk avoided her gaze. She read tarot from a common deck of poker cards, was a practitioner of the occulted arts, and was said to possess otherworldly powers beyond mortal kin, namely, being able to commune with the very trees and beasts of her homeland, and the uncanny talent of knowing how and when a man would die. Earl Ray and Lucinda were secretly wed beneath Raven Rocks, officiated by a drunkard reverend, and attended by a few local miscreants and the beasts of the forested hills, deer, black bears, coyotes, and of course, the unkind of ravens that had rightful possession of the bluff. A year and a day later, Lucinda gave birth to my father, James, beneath Socrates Mountain, so named for the Greek philosopher. The following morning, Earl Ray died when his still exploded in a magnificent blast that could be heard for 3 valleys away. His death occurred in the exact time and manner as Lucinda had foretold. Given the name James Earl Dethridge, my father inherited his dark talents from his mother. He could talk to animals and had a particular affection for reptiles and natatorial creatures of the water. He himself was a natural swimmer. He was both tall, broad of shoulder, and lean-muscled, with the countenance of a handsome devil. He was raised by his mother Lucinda, who instructed him further in witchcraft and the hidden arts. By the young age of 10, my father took to making moonshine like his father before him, called White Jesus. It was considered the best hooch in 5 counties. Unfortunately, my father was more of a connoisseur of rot gut, and thus concerned himself more with drinking his fire water than he was from profiting of it. By the time he was 19, he was in his full manhood, and women of all ages were smitten with him. He quickly ran afoul of the local sheriff for getting his daughter with child. Though my father was willing to marry the damsel, her father was not going to sully his family name with having a Dethridge wed into it. That sheriff hounded my father thereafter, raiding and destroying his moonshine still and the cabin he lived in. Though that lawman dared not harass my grandmother, he told her in a polite manner that if he were to find her son, he would lock him away in a cell in the pit of Tartarus itself. My father's time in West Virginia had run out, so with the law at his heels, and nothing but a duffel bag filled with some clothes, a gun, and a ton of misery, he fled to the furthest south he could, to Florida. There, he used his abilities to speak to aquatic animals and the meaner beasts to make a home in the Everglades. 2 years later, he sired me upon a she-gator. She was alligator aristocracy. Her father was King George, the largest gator in recorded history. Her mother was none other than the legendary and feared Lilith, a gator that haunted the Floridan swamps, killing and devouring both beast and man with impunity. My mother placed me as an embryo into a mound of mud and weed, hidden within the depths of a darkened swamp. My father sat vigil over that mound for the next 9 months. I had recollections of being within that cold, muddy womb, hearing the rumblings of the earth and the whispers of the black waters around me. A great storm announced the night of my birth, and my father pulled my bloody and muddy naked form from that womb and cut the umbilical cord that tied me to the swamp with his buck knife. The first glimpse I had in this life was that of my father, cast black as the abyss, silhouetted before a lightning strike that seared my newborn eyes blue. The rain that fell that night was in truth the weeping of angels, for they knew that something terrible had been made manifest into the world, and they swore revenge against my father for his iniquities. For 11 years, my father raised me in the swamps, instructed me in the witchcraft his mother had taught him. Alligators, snakes, and other mean creatures were my companions. No animal would dare bite me, for my blood carried a venom that would fell serpent or insect. Those were the peaceful years of my life, shadowed beneath the cypress canopy of the swamp. Then, on my 11th birthday, another great storm rolled in. This one was wrathful. I could see the murder of angels flying among the gray clouds and laughing with the thunder. My father stood before me, silhouetted by the storm just as he had on my first birthday. He said nothing, just stared at me, his progeny. Then the lightning struck him, disintegrating his mortal body entirely. The laughter of the angels above became a cacophony of joyous rapture, for they thought they had rid the world of another sinner. But in truth, they had forged a new one. For I swore vengeance upon their kind for the crime of taking my daddy away from me. Though I would soon discover that their murder had not been complete. For when it storms at night, I can hear my father, and we talk of dreadful things. He tells me of the secrets he has learned from becoming one with the storm. He shows me the places where angels sleep, so that I might slay them. Now, many decades later, I am ready to tell you those secrets. I will tell you tales of horror and woe, of men fallen from grace, of ghosts that haunt the living, of the dead that will not stay in their graves, and of creatures that have no right to exist in this world or any other. I am the warlock machine. I am the son of the storm. I am the slayer of angels. I am the Lowborn Kinsman.